I am Whitney, 28 years old, and the proud owner of a successful business consultancy firm in Seattle. 10 years ago, I vanished from my family's life without a trace after they betrayed me by using my $75,000 college fund to bail out my troublemaking older brother Jackson. That moment shattered my world, but it also became the catalyst for my journey to independence and success. Now, after a decade of silence, they have suddenly reached out after discovering I am well off. If you have ever had to walk away from toxic family members for your own well being, let me know where you are watching from. Hit that like button and subscribe to join me as I share what happened when I finally confronted them. Growing up in a middle class suburb of Boston, Massachusetts, I was always the academically driven child. From the moment I entered elementary school, I showed a natural aptitude for learning. I would spend hours reading books beyond my grade level, completing extra credit assignments, and participating in academic competitions. My teachers would often call my parents to praise my work ethic and intelligence. But at home, these achievements rarely received the recognition they deserved. My older brother Jackson, 4 years my senior, was the undisputed golden child of our family. Despite his mediocre grades and frequent disciplinary problems at school, my parents William and Diane showered him with attention, praise, and rewards. Dad worked as an accountant at a mid-sized firm, while Mom taught third grade at the local elementary school. They were respected members of our community, which made their blatant favoritism all the more confusing to outsiders. I remember my 10th birthday when I won a prestigious regional science fair. Instead of celebrating my achievement, my parents cut my birthday dinner short because Jackson had a basketball game. It did not matter that his team had lost every game that season, or that he spent most of his time on the bench. What mattered was that Jackson needed support, and my accomplishments could wait. This pattern continued throughout my childhood. When I was 12, I qualified for a summer academic program at a prestigious university. The program conflicted with Jackson's summer baseball tournament, and despite having neighbors who offered to drive me, my parents decided I should miss the opportunity. Mom patted my shoulder and said, "There will be other chances for you, Whitney. Your brother needs us right now." Jackson did not even place in the tournament. The only person who truly celebrated my achievements was my maternal grandmother, Elizabeth. She lived about 30 minutes away and would often invite me to stay with her on weekends. In her home, my academic certificates were proudly displayed on the refrigerator. She would listen intently as I shared my dreams of attending an Ivy League university and becoming a business leader. "You have a special spark, Whitney," she would tell me. "I see greatness in your future, no matter what anyone else says." When I was 14, she and my grandfather established a college fund for me, separate from any financial arrangements my parents had made. "This money is for your education," she told me firmly. "No one can touch it except you when the time comes." As I entered high school, I threw myself into academics with even greater determination. While Jackson partied his way through community college, changing majors 3 times before dropping out entirely, I maintained a perfect 4.0 GPA, became president of the debate team, and led our school's business club to state championships. I worked part-time at the local library, saving every penny for college expenses that my fund might not cover. The pattern of sacrifice continued. When I needed a ride to an important debate tournament, I had to find my own transportation because my parents were attending Jackson's intramural football game. When I needed help reviewing my college essays, my mother was too busy helping Jackson apply for yet another job that he would inevitably quit within weeks. During my junior year of high school, my grandfather passed away. At the funeral, while the family grieved, Jackson showed up late, reeking of alcohol. Instead of being reprimanded, my parents made excuses for him. "He is just processing his grief differently," my father said, while I sat there dry-eyed and proper expected to be the strong one, despite being 5 years younger. Before she passed away the following year, my grandmother reassured me about my college fund. "I have made sure everything is properly arranged," she told me during our last visit together. "The money is in a trust that will transfer to you when you begin college. Your education is secured." When her death left a massive hole in my heart, but I clung to the knowledge that she had believed in me enough to secure my future. By senior year, my hard work paid off when I was accepted to Cornell University with a partial scholarship. At my high school graduation ceremony, when they announced I was the valedictorian who would be attending Cornell in the fall, I finally felt a moment of unalloyed pride. My parents even seemed genuinely happy for me, though they spent most of the celebration talking about how Jackson had just landed a job at a local car dealership, as though selling used cars was somehow equivalent to my academic achievement. That evening, as we ate dinner at my favorite restaurant, I spoke excitedly about my plans for college. For once, I allowed myself to believe that maybe, just maybe, my parents could see my value. I did not know then that within weeks, they would make a decision that would shatter that brief moment of hope and alter the course of my life forever. Summer after graduation started brilliantly. I had secured an internship at a local marketing firm to gain experience and earn additional money for college expenses. Though my grandmother's college fund would cover most of my tuition and housing, I wanted extra funds for book supplies and the inevitable, unexpected costs that came with higher education. Cornell had sent me all the necessary paperwork, and I had diligently completed each form crossing days off my calendar until orientation. I had even connected with my assigned roommate, a girl named Amelia from Chicago, who seemed friendly and similarly academically focused. We had started planning how to decorate our dorm room and discussing which classes we were most excited about. One afternoon in late July, I was at work when I received a call from the Cornell Financial Aid Office. I stepped outside to take the call, expecting it to be a routine verification of information. "Ms. Caldwell, we are calling because there seems to be an issue with your tuition payment," the woman on the phone explained. "The trust fund that was supposed to transfer to your student account has not done so, and according to our records, no payment has been made for the upcoming semester." My heart began to race. "There must be some mistake," I replied. "My grandparents set up a college fund for me. It should have transferred automatically." "I suggest you contact your bank or whoever manages the trust immediately," she advised. "The payment deadline is in 2 weeks, and if we do not receive the funds by then, we may have to defer your admission." I left work early that day, my mind spinning with confusion and worry. I drove straight to the bank where my grandparents had established the trust, only to be told that the account had been emptied nearly 3 months earlier. According to their records, the funds had been transferred to my parents' joint account. Shock turned to nausea as I drove home, gripping the steering wheel so tightly my knuckles turned white. When I pulled into our driveway, I saw both my parents' cars present, which was unusual for a weekday afternoon. With trembling hands, I unlocked the front door and found them sitting at the kitchen table speaking in hushed tones. "What happened to my college fund?" I asked without preamble. "Cornell called me today. They said no payment has been made." My parents exchanged a look that confirmed my worst fears before I even heard their explanation. "Whitney, sit down," my father said, gesturing to the empty chair across from them. "We need to talk about something difficult."
I do not want to sit down.
I replied, remaining standing in the doorway. "I want to know where my $75,000 went." My mother sighed, her expression a mixture of guilt and defiance. "Your brother got into some trouble a few months ago. Serious trouble." "What does that have to do with my college fund?" "He was arrested for drug trafficking." My father explained, his voice dropping to almost a whisper. Despite us being alone in the house, the bail was set at $70,000. We did not have that kind of money available. The pieces clicked into place with sickening clarity. "So you took my college money? Money that Grandma and Grandpa set aside specifically for my education." "We had no choice." My mother insisted, her voice taking on the defensive tone I had heard countless times when Jackson's behavior was questioned. "He could have gone to prison for years. We had to get him out." "You had choices," I countered, my voice breaking. "You could have taken a loan, remortgaged the house, used your retirement funds, asked other family members. Instead, you stole my future." "We did not steal anything," my father said sharply. "We are your parents. It was a family emergency." "Where is Jackson now?" I asked. My parents exchanged another look. "He is upstairs resting," my mother replied. "His lawyer thinks they can get the charges reduced to possession. He might just get probation." A bitter laugh escaped me. "So let me understand this correctly. Jackson gets caught selling drugs. You use my college fund to bail him out, and now he is upstairs taking a nap while my future hangs in the balance. Did either of you even consider what this would mean for me? Of course we did, my mother said. We thought about it a lot. But family comes first, Whitney. Your brother could have gone to prison. And I could have gone to Cornell. I shouted, tears beginning to stream down my face. Do I not count as family too? When have I ever come first? When has anything I needed ever mattered as much as what Jackson wanted? You are being dramatic, my father dismissed. You can still go to college. There are student loans, or you could start at community college like Jackson did. The casual comparison to my brother, who had wasted his own educational opportunities, was the final straw. Jackson chose to throw away his education. I worked for mine. I earned that scholarship. I earned my place at Cornell. We know you are upset, my mother said, reaching for my hand, which I quickly pulled away. But this is just a setback. You will get over it. Get over it, I repeated incredulously. You just stole $75,000 from me, money my grandparents specifically set aside for my education, and you expect me to get over it. It was not your money yet, my father corrected. The trust was in our names until you turned 18. Which I did 3 months ago, I pointed out. You waited until I was legally an adult to steal my money. My father's face hardened. That is enough, Whitney. I will not be accused of stealing in my own home. We made a difficult decision for the good of this family. No, I said, clarity suddenly washing over me. You made a decision that was good for Jackson like you always do. I have never been a true part of this family, have I? I have always just been the reliable one, the one who does not cause trouble, the one whose needs and dreams can be sacrificed. That is not true, my mother protested weakly. It is true, I insisted. If you had to choose between us right now, who would you pick? If Jackson and I were both drowning and you could only save one, who would it be? Their silence was deafening. That is what I thought, I whispered, backing toward the door. I have my answer now. I spent that night at my best friend Sophia's house crying until I had no tears left. Her parents, who had always treated me like a second daughter, were horrified by what my parents had done. They offered their guest room for as long as I needed it. You can stay with us while you figure things out, Sophia's mom assured me, bringing me a cup of tea as I sat wrapped in a blanket on their couch. Whatever you decide to do, we are here for you. The next morning, I called Cornell's financial aid office and scheduled an emergency appointment. I spent 3 hours on the phone with various administrators, explaining my situation and begging for additional time and assistance. Finally, I spoke with a compassionate counselor named Mrs. Rivera, who truly listened to my plight. This is an unusual and unfortunate situation, Whitney, she said after I had explained everything. While we cannot hold your spot indefinitely without payment, we can offer you a deferment option. You could take a gap year, work to save money, apply for additional scholarships, and start next fall instead. It was not ideal, but it was a lifeline. I will take it, I said, relief washing over me. I will do whatever it takes. Over the next few days, I developed a plan. I would need to find full-time employment immediately. I would need to save every penny possible. I would need to apply for every scholarship grant and financial aid option available. Most importantly, I would need to create distance from my family and their toxic dynamics. Through a connection of Sophia's father, I landed an interview at a small tech startup in Boston that needed an administrative assistant. The founder, a dynamic woman named Laura, seemed impressed by my academic achievements and willingness to learn. I will be honest, she said during our interview. This position is mostly handling schedules, answering phones, and managing office operations. It is probably not what someone with your academic record was aiming for right now. I am adaptable, I replied, and I am a quick learner. More importantly, I need to save for college, and I will work harder than anyone you could hire. She hired me on the spot, offering a salary that was modest but livable, especially since I would be staying with Sophia's family temporarily. Meanwhile, my parents had realized the severity of their actions and were attempting damage control. They called repeatedly, left voicemails promising to figure something out, and even showed up at Sophia's house one evening. "Whitney, please come home," my mother pleaded when I reluctantly agreed to speak with them on the front porch. We can work this out as a family. What is there to work out? I asked coldly. The money is gone. Jackson is free. Everything worked out exactly as you planned. We did not plan to hurt you, my father insisted. We were in an impossible situation. No, you were in a difficult situation and you chose the easiest solution for yourselves, I corrected. You always choose him. At least now I know where I stand. After 2 weeks of working at the tech startup, I discovered I had a natural aptitude for operations and problem solving. Laura began assigning me tasks beyond my administrative duties, including helping streamline their customer service protocols and assisting with basic financial forecasting. You have a good mind for business, she observed one evening as we worked late. Have you ever considered studying business administration instead of literature? I had not, but the idea took root. Perhaps this detour in my educational journey was an opportunity to reassess my path. Cornell had a prestigious business program as well. I could potentially switch majors if I still managed to attend the following year. Jackson, meanwhile, had his charges reduced just as his lawyer predicted. He returned to living at home, supposedly looking for work, but mostly playing video games and going out with friends. He made no acknowledgement of how his actions had impacted my life. One Sunday, he showed up at Sophia's house while I was alone, studying for a certification that would help me advance at work. Mom and Dad sent me to talk to you, he said, slouching against the doorframe. They want you to come home. The house is weird without you. I stared at him, searching for any sign of remorse or understanding. There was none. Did they tell you why I left? I asked. He shrugged. Something about your college money, but they said they will figure it out. Just come home and stop making everyone miserable. Did you know they used my entire college fund to bail you out? Another shrug. They did what they had to do. I would have gone to prison otherwise. And that would have been the consequence of your actions, I pointed out. Instead, I am paying the price for your mistakes. Again. He rolled his eyes. Always so dramatic, Whitney. Just get some student loans like everyone else. It is not the end of the world. In that moment, I saw with perfect clarity that nothing would ever change in my family dynamic. Jackson would continue making poor choices. My parents would continue enabling him. And I would always be expected to understand, forgive, and sacrifice. 3 months into my job, Laura approached me with an unexpected opportunity. Our Seattle office needs an operations coordinator. It is an entry-level position, but with more responsibility and better pay than what you are doing here. I think you would be perfect for it. Seattle, I repeated, surprised. That is across the country. It is, she acknowledged, but sometimes distance is what we need to grow. Think about it. The position starts in 3 weeks. That evening, I made a decision that would alter the course of my life. I would take the Seattle position. I would defer Cornell for a full year, possibly longer. I would build a new life far away from the toxic patterns of my family. And I would do it entirely on my own terms. When I told Sophia my plans, she hugged me tightly. I will miss you so much, but this is the right move. You need to put yourself first because no one else in your family ever will. I did not tell my parents I was leaving until the day before my flight. I returned home briefly to collect the few remaining belongings I had left behind, and found them sitting in the living room watching television with Jackson. I am moving to Seattle tomorrow, I announced. I have accepted a job there. Their shocked expressions might have been comical under different circumstances. Seattle, my mother repeated. But that is so far away. What about college? I have deferred for at least a year, I explained calmly. I will be working and saving money. Maybe I will attend university in Seattle instead. This is ridiculous, my father sputtered. You are throwing a tantrum and making rash decisions because of one setback. One setback, I echoed. You stole my future and gave it to him. I pointed at Jackson, who had not even bothered to look up from his phone. This is not a tantrum. This is me finally putting myself first. As I turned to leave, my mother caught my arm. Whitney, please, at least give us your address and phone number. We are still your family. I gently removed her hand. No. You have made it very clear who your family is, and it is not me. I will contact you when I am ready. Until then, please respect my decision. The next morning, I boarded a plane to Seattle with 2 suitcases, my savings, and a determination to build a life where I would never again be an afterthought. Seattle greeted me with rain and unfamiliarity, a clean slate upon which to write a new chapter. I arrived with just under $3,000 in savings, enough for first and last month's rent, on a room in a shared apartment with 3 strangers. The space was small, just a bedroom barely large enough for a twin bed and a desk with shared access to a cramped kitchen and bathroom. But it was mine, paid for with money I had earned. My roommates were an eclectic group: Jasmine, a barista and aspiring painter; Marcus, a graduate student in engineering; and Taylor, who worked nights as a bartender. None of them knew my history, which was exactly how I wanted it. Here I was not the overlooked sister or the responsible daughter. I was just Whitney, the new operations coordinator at a growing tech company. The first months were brutally difficult. Homesickness hit me at unexpected moments, not for my parents or brother, but for the familiarity of Boston, for Sophia, for the life I had planned. I was working 50-hour weeks, at minimum learning the job while also trying to understand a new city. My tiny room became both sanctuary and prison on the weekends, when loneliness threatened to overwhelm me. I began taking night classes at the local community college, partly to advance my career prospects and partly to fill the empty hours. Business administration courses replaced the literature studies I had once dreamed of pursuing at Cornell. I discovered a natural affinity for organizational systems, process improvement, and financial management. What had begun as a detour was becoming a genuine career path. 4 months into my Seattle life, I was assigned to work directly with Sarah Kendrick, the operations director for the entire company. Sarah was in her early 40s, sharp, efficient, and unexpectedly kind. She took notice of my work ethic and began mentoring me informally. "You have good instincts," she told me after I had reorganized the customer onboarding process, cutting response time by 30%. "But you need formal training to advance. Have you considered completing your degree?" I explained my situation in broad strokes without the emotional details. "College is in the plans, but I need to save more first." Sarah nodded thoughtfully. "The company has a tuition assistance program for promising employees. If you stay with us for a year, you could qualify." That conversation planted a seed of hope that had been missing since the day I discovered my college fund was gone. I threw myself even more completely into my work, determined to prove my value to the company and secure that educational opportunity. By the end of my first year in Seattle, I had been promoted to senior operations coordinator with a significant salary increase. I had moved to a better apartment, still with roommates, but in a nicer neighborhood with a larger personal space. I had made a few friends, mostly colleagues and classmates, people who knew me only as the capable, ambitious young woman I was becoming. During this time, my parents continued their attempts to contact me. They called the company's switchboard until I asked reception to block their numbers. They sent emails that I eventually filtered to a folder I rarely checked. Once they even had Jackson reach out via social media, a transparent attempt to manipulate me through the very person who had benefited from my loss. I did maintain contact with Sophia, who kept me generally informed about my family's welfare without sharing specifics that might pull me back into their orbit. I learned that my father had been promoted at his accounting firm, that my mother had switched to teaching 5th grade, that Jackson had cycled through 3 more jobs and was living in their basement again. Nothing had changed, which only reinforced my decision to stay away. Around this time, I met Daniel, a software engineer at a neighboring company. We met at an industry networking event, where he approached me after a presentation I had given on operational efficiency. "That was impressive," he said, offering his hand. "Most people make operations sound boring, but you made it seem like the most important part of any business." "It is the most important part," I replied with a smile. "Engineering builds the product, but operations keeps the company alive." Our relationship developed slowly. I was cautious about letting anyone get too close, wary of being hurt again. Daniel was patient, respectful of my boundaries, and genuinely interested in my goals and ambitions. He was the first person in Seattle to whom I revealed the full story of why I had left Boston. Your parents betrayed your trust in the most fundamental way up, he said after listening without interruption. You were right to leave. His validation was healing in ways I had not anticipated. We dated for 8 months, and though the relationship eventually ended amicably due to his relocation to San Diego for work, it helped me understand that I could trust again, that not everyone would place me last on their list of priorities. By my second year in Seattle, I had qualified for the company's tuition assistance program and enrolled in evening business classes at the University of Washington. The rhythm of my life became work-study-sleep with occasional social activities when time permitted. I was building something, though I was not yet sure what it would ultimately become. Sarah continued to mentor me, giving me increasingly complex projects and responsibilities. Under her guidance, I learned the intricacies of business operations at a granular level, skills that would prove invaluable later. You should be thinking about where you want to be in 5 years, she told me during one of our regular check-ins. You have outgrown this role already. When a position opened for operations director of a new division, Sarah encouraged me to apply despite my relative inexperience. The worst they can say is no, she reasoned. And even if they do, you will have put yourself on their radar. To my surprise, after 3 rounds of increasingly challenging interviews, I got the job. At 24 years old, I became one of the youngest directors in the company's history. The salary increase was substantial enough that I could afford my own apartment, continue my education, and still save aggressively. The day I signed the contract for my new position, I sat alone in my new office staring out at the Seattle skyline. For the first time since leaving Boston, I felt a profound sense of vindication. I had lost my college fund, my original career plan, and my family. Yet here I was succeeding on my own terms. The path had not been what I expected, but perhaps it was the one I was meant to follow all along. That evening, I called Sophia to share my news. After congratulating me, she hesitated before adding, "Your parents ask about you every time I see them. They seem genuinely sorry, Whitney." "Sorry they got caught or sorry they did it?" I asked, bored. "I think they are starting to understand what they lost," she replied carefully. "Jackson got arrested again last month, DUI this time, but they made him deal with it himself. Maybe they are finally learning." I felt a twinge of something not quite forgiveness, but perhaps the first crack in the wall I had built around that part of my heart. "Maybe," I conceded, "but I am not ready to find out." And I was not. The life I was building in Seattle still felt too new, too fragile to risk exposing it to the toxic patterns of my past. I needed more time, more strength, more certainty in who I had become before I could safely revisit who I had been. With my promotion to operations director, I entered a new phase of my career and personal development. My responsibilities now included managing a team of 10 people overseeing a significant budget and developing strategic plans for our division's growth. The learning curve was steep, but I thrived under the pressure, drawing on both my formal education and the practical experience I had gained. My approach to operations was somewhat unconventional. While many in similar positions focused primarily on cutting costs and maximizing efficiency, I emphasized creating systems that supported both the business and its people. Happy employees, I believed, led to happy customers, and ultimately better business outcomes. This philosophy caught the attention of senior leadership, particularly when my division began consistently outperforming projections. Within 6 months, our customer satisfaction scores had increased by 22%, employee turnover had decreased by 18%, and our operational costs had actually decreased, despite investing more in employee development. During a quarterly review meeting, the CEO asked me to explain our success. "What are you doing differently in your division that we should implement company-wide?" The question gave me an opportunity to present my holistic approach to operations, complete with data supporting my methods. The room fell silent when I finished, and for a moment I feared I had overstepped. Then the CEO smiled. "I think we have found our secret weapon," he said, looking around the table at the other executives. "Whitney, I want you to work with the other directors to implement your framework across all divisions." Then this expanded role meant even more responsibility and visibility within the company. It also meant working directly with the executive team, giving me invaluable exposure to high-level strategic thinking and decision-making processes. I was no longer just managing operations. I was helping shape the company's future. As my professional life flourished, I also began creating a more balanced personal life. I purchased my first home at 26, a modest but modern one-bedroom condominium, in a neighborhood walking distance from both work and the university. The day I signed the mortgage papers, I felt a surge of pride knowing that this milestone, typically achieved much later in life, was the result of my own hard work and determination. I expanded my social circle beyond work colleagues, joining a hiking club and a book group focused on business innovation. Through these activities, I formed friendships based on shared interests rather than circumstance or necessity. These relationships lacked the depth of my bond with Sophia, but they filled my life with connection and community. I also began developing what I thought of as my chosen family, a small group of close friends who supported each other unconditionally. There was Maya, a brilliant software developer, who had also left her biological family behind for complex reasons. There was James, a kind-hearted marketing director, who had become my most trusted workplace ally. And there was Eliza, my next-door neighbor, who had knocked on my door the day I moved in with homemade cookies and an offer of friendship that had proven genuine. These people knew my story, understood my boundaries regarding family, and respected my choices without judgment. With them, I could be authentically myself, both the strong, capable professional and the occasionally vulnerable young woman still healing from betrayal. My approach to romantic relationships remained cautious. After Daniel, I dated occasionally, but maintained careful emotional boundaries. I was not against the idea of a serious relationship, but my career and personal growth remained my priorities. Any partner would need to understand and support my ambitions, a standard that eliminated many potential suitors. As I approached my 27th birthday, I began considering my next career move. While I enjoyed my role in the company, I had begun to see limitations in what I could accomplish within the existing corporate structure. I had ideas about operations management that were too innovative, too different from traditional approaches to be fully implemented in an established company. I started keeping a notebook of these ideas, jotting down systems and processes I would implement if I were in complete control. Initially, these notes were just a creative outlet, a way to explore concepts without the constraints of corporate approval processes. Gradually, however, they evolved into something that looked suspiciously like a business plan. The catalyst came during a conference where I was invited to speak about my operational innovations. After my presentation, several business owners approached me asking if I would consult on their operational challenges. One woman, the founder of a struggling healthcare startup, was particularly persistent. "My company has amazing technology and brilliant people," she explained, "but our operations are a mess and it is killing us. We need someone like you to help us reorganize before we run out of runway." I agreed to meet with her team as a one-time favor, spending a Saturday reviewing their systems and processes. By the end of the day, I had provided them with a detailed plan for operational improvement. 2 weeks later, she called to tell me they had implemented my suggestions with remarkable results. "You saved my company," she said simply. "What would it take to get you to do this for other businesses?" That question sparked a realization. Perhaps I did not need to choose between implementing my ideas and working for an established company. Perhaps I could create something entirely new, a consultancy focused on innovative operational solutions for businesses at all stages of development. The idea both terrified and exhilarated me. Starting my own business would mean leaving the security of my corporate position, taking financial risks, and entering the uncertain world of entrepreneurship. It would also mean complete freedom to implement my ideas, set my own schedule, and potentially help numerous companies, rather than just one. I spent 3 months researching, planning, and soul searching before making my decision. I met with small business advisors, spoke with successful consultants in other fields, and meticulously calculated the financial implications. I developed a business plan, identified potential clients, and established how much runway I would need before becoming profitable. On my 28th birthday, I submitted my resignation, giving a generous 2-month notice to ensure a smooth transition. My colleagues were surprised but supportive, particularly Sarah, who had become both mentor and friend. "I always knew you would outgrow us eventually," she said when I shared my plans. "I just did not expect it to happen quite so soon." Then she smiled and added, "My first piece of advice: hire an operations person immediately. Consultants are notoriously bad at managing their own businesses." With her blessing and a list of potential clients, she discreetly shared, "I launched Whitney Caldwell Consulting, specializing in operational excellence for growing companies." My first client was the healthcare startup I had helped previously. Their glowing testimonial led to referrals, and within 3 months, I had a client list that kept me working 60-hour weeks and necessitated hiring an assistant. By the 6-month mark, I had expanded to a team of 5, including operations specialists, who could implement my recommendations, while I focused on assessment and strategy. We moved from the small office I had initially rented to a larger space with room to grow. Articles about my unique approach to operations began appearing in business publications, further raising my profile and bringing in higher-profile clients. 1 year into my entrepreneurial journey, I stood in my office overlooking the Seattle skyline, marveling at how far I had come. The scared 18-year-old who had discovered her college fund had been stolen seemed like a different person entirely. In her place stood a successful business owner who had created something valuable entirely on her own terms. That evening, as I sat in my condominium reviewing quarterly projections, my phone chimed with an email notification. The sender's address made my heart skip a beat. My mother. I had not completely cut communication with my family, occasionally responding to their messages with brief updates that revealed little about my actual life. They knew I lived in Seattle and worked in business, but little else. This email was different from their usual attempts at contact. The subject line read, "We know about your company. Please call us." The email from my mother sat in my inbox like a stone dropped into still water, sending ripples of anxiety through my otherwise ordered life. For several minutes, I simply stared at the subject line. "We know about your company. Please call us." How had they discovered Whitney Caldwell Consulting? I had been careful to keep my professional life separate from my family connections, never posting about my business on personal social media accounts they might monitor. Finally, I opened the message, bracing myself for whatever manipulation tactic they were attempting now. "Dear Whitney," it began formally, a departure from my mother's usual emotional appeals. "Your father and I recently discovered your business through an article in Business Insider featuring innovative consultancy firms. We were stunned to see your photo and read about your success. We are both incredibly proud of what you have accomplished on your own." I snorted at this, proud now that I had achieved success. Where was that pride when I was working 80-hour weeks, taking night classes, and building my career from nothing? "We need to speak with you about an important family matter. Your father has been diagnosed with a heart condition that requires surgery. The medical bills are substantial, and our insurance covers only a portion. We would not ask if we had any other options, but we are struggling financially. Jackson is trying to help, but his circumstances are limited. Please call us at your earliest convenience." The familiar weight of family obligations settled on my shoulders, immediately followed by a wave of suspicion. Was this another manipulation? Was my father truly ill? Or was this a ploy to reestablish contact now that I had achieved financial success? The timing seemed too convenient to be coincidental. I closed the email without responding and tried to return to my work, but concentration eluded me. After an hour of staring blankly at spreadsheets, I called the one person who might have insight into the situation. "Sophia, it is Whitney. Do you know anything about my dad having heart problems?" There was a pause before she responded. "He did have some health issues a few months ago. Your mom mentioned he was seeing a cardiologist, but I do not know the details. Why did they contact you?" "They sent an email asking for financial help with medical bills," I explained. "I am trying to determine if it is legitimate or just another attempt to pull me back into their orbit." "I think the health concerns are real," Sophia said carefully, "but I also know they have been following your success online. Your mom showed me a printed copy of that Business Insider article. She carries it in her purse." The image of my mother carrying around my press clipping was unexpectedly poignant, but I quickly hardened my heart against the sentimentality. They had 10 years to reach out to apologize meaningfully to make amends. They only contacted me when they needed money. That is true, Sophia acknowledged, though your mom has asked about you constantly. For what it is worth, I think they do regret what happened, especially now that they see how successful you have become, despite their actions. After ending the call with Sophia, I scheduled an appointment with my therapist, Dr. Brennan, whom I had been seeing for the past 3 years. She had helped me work through the anger and betrayal I felt toward my family, though we both acknowledged that complete healing would likely require eventual confrontation and resolution. This could be an opportunity, she suggested during our emergency session the following morning. You have been building strength and establishing boundaries for 10 years. Perhaps you are ready to face them on your own terms. What if it is just another manipulation? I asked. What if they are using my father's health as a way to access my money, the way they used my college fund for Jackson? That is a legitimate concern, Dr. Brennan acknowledged. But you are not an 18-year-old with limited options anymore. You have the power to set terms to investigate their claims and to walk away if necessary. Meeting with them does not obligate you to give them anything financially or emotionally. Her words resonated with me. I was no longer powerless. Any interaction with my family would happen on my terms, not theirs. That evening, I did not respond to my mother's email directly. Instead, I used my company's resources to research my father's medical situation. My assistant contacted the hospital where he was allegedly receiving treatment, posing as an insurance verification specialist. She confirmed that William Caldwell was indeed a cardiac patient with an upcoming surgical procedure. The legitimacy of their medical crisis confirmed. I still needed to understand their financial situation. Before deciding how to respond, I hired a discreet financial investigator to assess my parents' true economic circumstances. The report I received a week later painted a concerning picture. While my father's job was secure, their savings had been depleted by a series of poor investments and, unsurprisingly, repeated financial support of Jackson. They had remortgaged their home twice and were carrying significant credit card debt. The medical bills would indeed create a substantial hardship. The investigator also uncovered something that made my blood boil. Jackson had been arrested 3 more times over the past decade for increasingly serious offenses, and my parents had spent thousands on legal fees and bail money for him. Their financial problems were largely self-inflicted, the result of continuing to enable my brother's destructive behavior. Armed with this knowledge, I finally responded to my mother's email with a brief message. I will be in Boston next Wednesday. We can meet at the Harborview restaurant at noon. I will come alone and expect the same from you and Dad. This is not negotiable. The restaurant was a deliberate choice, an upscale establishment near the financial district, rather than anywhere close to my childhood home. I would be meeting them on neutral territory in a public place where emotional outbursts would be contained by social convention. As my flight to Boston took off the following Tuesday, I gazed out the window at the Seattle skyline receding below me. For 10 years, I had been building a life separate from my family's toxic dynamics. Now I was voluntarily flying back into the storm. But this time, I had built a sturdy ship equipped with strong boundaries and the financial independence to weather whatever they might throw my way. The overnight flight gave me time to prepare mentally for the confrontation ahead. I rehearsed what I would say, how I would respond to various scenarios, and most importantly, what boundaries I would maintain, regardless of emotional appeals. By the time the plane touched down in Boston, I felt as prepared as I could be for what promised to be an intense reunion. As I checked into my hotel far from my parents' neighborhood, I received a text message from an unknown number. Heard you're back in town, we should catch up. Jackson. I deleted it without responding. My brother was explicitly excluded from tomorrow's meeting, and I had no interest in seeing him separately. That evening, I met Sophia for dinner, my first time seeing her in person in nearly 3 years. We had maintained our friendship through video calls and messages, but nothing compared to the comfort of her familiar presence. As we embraced outside the restaurant, I felt the first genuine smile of the trip spread across my face. You look amazing, she said, stepping back to examine me. Success suits you. It is not just success, I replied. It is peace. Building a life on my own terms has been more healing than I ever imagined. Over dinner, she filled me in on her own life, her recent engagement, her career and education. We carefully avoided discussing my family until the dessert arrived. Are you ready for tomorrow? She asked gently. I nodded, twirling my spoon in my untouched creme brulee. As ready as I will ever be. I know what I want to say, what boundaries I need to maintain. The question is whether they will respect those boundaries or try to bulldoze them as they always have. You are not the same person who left, Sophia reminded me. You will not be bulldozed unless you allow it. As I lay in my hotel bed that night, I thought about the girl I had been and the woman I had become. The betrayal that had once defined me was now just one chapter in a much larger story. Whatever happened tomorrow, I would return to Seattle with my integrity and independence intact. The Harborview restaurant overlooked Boston Harbor, its large windows framing the water and skyline, in a picturesque display that belied the tension I felt as I approached the entrance. I had arrived 15 minutes early, requesting a corner table that offered both privacy and a clear view of the entrance. I wanted to see my parents before they saw me. I wore a tailored navy blue suit that projected professional confidence, my hair styled in a sleek chignon, subtle makeup enhancing my features. My appearance was a carefully constructed armor, projecting success and self-assurance. The maitre d' escorted me to my table, where I ordered sparkling water and waited. They arrived precisely at noon punctuality, being one of my father's few virtues. I watched them speak to the host, saw my mother nervously smooth her hair, noted how my father seemed to have aged far more than the 10 years that had passed. They followed the host through the restaurant, and I steeled myself for the moment of recognition. My mother saw me first, her steps faltering slightly before she composed herself. My father's expression remained impassive, though I detected a flash of surprise in his eyes, perhaps at how different I looked from the teenage girl he remembered. I did not stand to greet them, instead remaining seated as they approached. "Hello," I said simply as they reached the table. "Whitney." My mother breathed her eyes, drinking in the sight of me. "You look wonderful." "Thank you," I replied, my tone neutral. "Please sit down." They settled into the chairs across from me, the table creating a physical barrier between us that matched the emotional one. A server appeared immediately to take their drink orders, providing a momentary reprieve from the need for conversation. When the server departed, my father cleared his throat. "Thank you for agreeing to meet with us. It has been a long time." 10 years, I confirmed. A decade since I discovered you had taken my college fund to bail out Jackson. My mother flinched at the direct reference. "We have regretted that decision every day," she said, reaching toward my hand resting on the table. I subtly moved it to my lap. "Have you?" I asked coolly. "Because my investigation suggests you have continued enabling Jackson's behavior throughout the years I have been gone. Multiple arrests, legal fees, bail money, your financial troubles are largely self-inflicted." My father's expression hardened. "You investigated us?" "Of course I did," I replied calmly. "You contacted me after 10 years of silence to ask for money. Did you expect me to take your word without verification?" "We contacted you because we are family," my mother insisted. "And yes, we need help, but we also wanted to reconnect with our daughter." Interesting that the reconnection attempt coincided with discovering my financial success. I observed, taking a sip of my water. "You made no meaningful effort to understand the harm you caused, or to make amends until you needed something from me." The arrival of their drinks created another brief interruption. We ordered food, though I knew I would barely touch mine. This meeting was not about lunch. "Your father's medical condition is serious," my mother said when the server had gone. "The surgery he needs is expensive, and our insurance will only cover 70%. "I am aware," I replied. "I verified his medical situation before agreeing to this meeting. I am sorry about your health, Dad. Truly." A flicker of surprise crossed his face at my acknowledgement. "Thank you," he said stiffly. "What I do not understand," I continued, "is why you continue to deplete your resources supporting Jackson's destructive behavior, yet expect me to step in when the consequences of those choices affect your health care." My father's jaw tightened. Your brother has struggled with addiction issues. We could not turn our backs on him. The way you turned your back on me, I countered. I was not asking you to fund a drug habit or bail me out of jail. I was trying to get an education to build a future. A future I ended up building anyway, no thanks to either of you. We know we made a terrible mistake, my mother said, tears welling in her eyes. When we saw that article about your company, we were so proud. You accomplished everything without our help, while Jackson has had every advantage and still struggles. It is interesting that you phrase it that way, I said. I succeeded without your help, or more accurately, despite your active hindrance. Jackson fails despite your constant intervention. Have you ever considered that your help might be the problem? My father leaned forward. We did not come here to be lectured about our parenting. Why did you come here, Dad? I asked directly. To reconnect with your daughter or to access her bank account? The bluntness of my question hung in the air between us. Our food arrived in the uncomfortable silence that followed plates arranged before us like props in a play none of us wanted to perform. Both, my mother finally admitted, her voice small. We do need financial help. But seeing your success made us realize how much we lost when you left, how much we threw away. I studied them both, searching for sincerity beneath the obvious desperation. I am willing to help with the medical bills, I said after a long moment, but my assistance comes with conditions. Relief flooded my father's face, quickly replaced by wariness at my mention of conditions. What kind of conditions? First, I will pay the hospital directly. No money will go through your accounts, I stated firmly. Second, this is a one-time assistance. I am not establishing myself as your financial safety net. Third, and most importantly, you will stop enabling Jackson's destructive behavior. No more bail money, no more legal fees, no more rent-free living in your basement. If he does not face consequences, he will never change. My parents exchanged a glance I could not quite interpret. Jackson has been staying with us again, my mother admitted. He lost his apartment after his last arrest. Then he needs to find somewhere else to live, I said flatly. My help is contingent on you ending the cycle of enabling. I will not subsidize his lifestyle indirectly through helping you. He is still our son, my father protested. We cannot just throw him out on the street. Then I cannot help you, I replied, placing my napkin on the table and reaching for my purse. You are still making the same choice you made 10 years ago. Nothing has changed. Wait, my mother said desperately. Please, Whitney, we will figure something out with Jackson. We do not want to lose you again. I paused, studying her tear-streaked face. You never really had me, I said quietly. I was always the responsible one, the one who did not need attention or resources because I could fend for myself. I was the child you could ignore because I would not fall apart. Except when I finally needed you, when my future was on the line, you chose him. Again. We made a terrible mistake, my father acknowledged, his voice rough with emotion. We did not understand what we were throwing away, but we do now. I was about to respond when a commotion at the restaurant entrance caught my attention. Jackson was arguing with the maitre d', his voice carrying across the dining room. My body tensed immediately. Did you ask him to come? I demanded, eyes narrowing. No, my mother insisted, looking alarmed. We told him we were meeting you alone. Jackson spotted us and pushed past the host, striding toward our table, with the entitled confidence I remembered all too well. At 38, he looked much older, his face puffy and marked by the consequences of his lifestyle choices. Family reunion without me, he called loudly, causing nearby diners to turn and stare. That hardly seems fair. I stood gathering my purse and jacket. I made it clear this meeting was to be just the three of us. The fact that he is here tells me all I need to know about your willingness to respect my boundaries. Whitney, please, my mother pleaded. We did not invite him. Jackson reached the table, reeking of alcohol despite the early hour. Little sister, he said with a smirk. All grown up and too important for the family now, huh? Mom says you are loaded these days. That is enough, Jackson, my father snapped, standing to confront him. You need to leave. Now. The shock of hearing my father actually stand up to Jackson momentarily froze me in place. It was the first time I could remember him directly opposing anything my brother wanted. "Are you serious right now?" Jackson demanded. "You are taking her side. She abandoned this family for 10 years. After we took her college fund to bail you out," my father replied, his voice tight with suppressed emotion. "She had every right to leave, and we are lucky she is even speaking to us now. Go home, Jackson. We will discuss this later." Jackson turned to me, his expression ugly with resentment. "So that is how it is now. You swoop back in with your fancy suit and successful business, and suddenly you are the favorite. You always thought you were better than me." "I never thought I was better than you," I replied calmly. "I just wanted equal consideration, equal love, equal opportunity. I never got any of those things, so I built a life where I did not need them from you or anyone else." The manager appeared at Jackson's side, firmly suggesting he leave the premises before they called security. With a final venomous glare at all of us, he stormed out, bumping into tables as he went. In the uncomfortable silence that followed, I gathered my belongings. "I think we are done here." "Whitney, please," my mother said. "Do not leave like this. We will handle Jackson. We will meet your conditions." I looked at them both, seeing for the first time not the all-powerful parents who had shaped my childhood, but aging, flawed people who had made devastating mistakes. "I will pay for Dad's medical expenses directly to the hospital," I said finally. "Send me the billing information, but my other conditions stand. I will not continue financial support if you continue enabling Jackson." We understand," my father said, looking suddenly older and more tired than when he had arrived. "And regardless of whether you believe it, we are sorry. Not just because we need your help now, but because we failed you when you needed ours." It was the most direct acknowledgement of wrongdoing I had ever heard from him. It did not erase the past, but it was a start. "I am flying back to Seattle tomorrow," I told them. "I have built a good life there, a life I am proud of. I did not come back to reintegrate into this family dynamic. I came back to close a chapter that has been left open too long." "Will we see you again?" my mother asked, her voice small. I considered the question carefully. "That depends on you, on whether you respect the boundaries I have set, on whether you make real changes in how you relate to Jackson, on whether you can accept me as I am now rather than trying to pull me back into old patterns." They both nodded, subdued by the finality in my voice. "I will be in touch about the medical bills," I said, standing to leave. "Beyond that, we will see." I walked out of the restaurant with my head high, feeling lighter than I had in years. The conversation had not gone as I had imagined, but it had accomplished something important. For the first time, I had faced my family not as a victim of their choices, but as an equal making my own. As I stepped into the bright Boston sunshine, my phone chimed with an email notification. It was from my assistant in Seattle, confirming a meeting with a potential new client for the day after my return. Life was continuing, my business was growing, and I was moving forward regardless of how this chapter with my family ultimately resolved. I had come to Boston carrying the weight of an 18-year-old's betrayal and pain. I would return to Seattle as a 28-year-old woman who had confronted her past and reclaimed her narrative. The abandoned daughter had become a successful, independent woman who could extend help from a position of strength rather than seeking it from a place of need. That evening, as I packed for my return flight, I realized something profound had shifted within me. The anger that had fueled me for so long had transformed into something quieter, but more powerful. The certainty that I was enough exactly as I was, regardless of my family's acknowledgement or approval. I had disappeared for 10 years to build myself anew. Now I could choose whether to allow my family back into my life on my terms or to continue my journey without them. Either way, I would never again be defined by their betrayal. My journey had come full circle from a betrayed daughter to a woman strong enough to offer help to those who had once abandoned her. Not out of obligation, but out of choice. Not from weakness, but from strength. It was perhaps the most meaningful success I had achieved. As I closed my suitcase, I sent a brief email to my parents with the contact information for the hospital's billing department. At the end, I added a single line: I am proud of the person I have become. I hope someday you can truly see her too. Have you ever had to create boundaries with family members who took advantage of your generosity? Share your experience in the comments below. If my story resonated with you, please like this video and subscribe to hear more journeys of healing and self-discovery. Remember, sometimes the family we choose is more important than the family we are born into. Thank you for listening to my story, and may you always find the strength to choose yourself when necessary.